Hello folks, it's Gab and Dad, and we are doing the best films of 2011. The 3 best films that each of us has picked.
Well, our favorites. Not the objective best.
You want to have a discussion what best means now?
No.
No. And we haven't compared notes. I don't know what her top 3 are. What I do know what my top 3 are.
Yeah, we're not just picking out of movies we've seen together, reviewed together.
Yes.
You've seen some I haven't seen,
yes.
etc.
Yes, and we're going to start with number 3.
Go.
My number 3, third best movie for 2011 for me was The Descendants.
The
Descendants. Didn't attract a lot of attention, I don't think, but I found
it's got some awards talk.
Yeah, I thought it was a very interesting film with a nuanced adult plot that meant something, that was novel and interesting. The location is set in Hawaii, had its own sort of exotic component to it, although I wish they didn't play that blasted Hawaiian music throughout.
I think it was to juxtapose with the angst.
Maybe. And initially, my reaction was that George Clooney, who's the lead in that film, was maybe miscast. But as I thought about it, he kind of grew on me.
Yeah.
In some ways, he was not miscast.
He was good.
Film.
He was less George Clooney than he usually is.
Yeah, and it was just a very interesting, provocative, thought-provoking, and surprising film.
Yep, I agree. I liked it a lot. Saw it at TIFF, but it did not make my top 3. Maybe because you're an elder male, it appealed to you a little bit more. Leaving
also,
that on the side.
There's a certain resemblance between me and George Clooney.
Of course, I know you
relate. Naturally relate.
My number 3 is Melancholia. Uh-huh. Another film I saw at the film festival, which not a lot of attention in the sense that it's not a mainstream film, very different, but just so bold, like just risky, unique. Didn't succeed on every level, but the risks that Lars von Trier, the director, took are they really stay with you. I mean, I recall scenes and feelings from that film.
Feelings of madness?
Well, I always have feelings of madness, and some I attribute to remembering the film.
And others attribute to your lifestyle.
And the rest we won't get into. So it's really stayed with me. The imagery, as I say, the emotions, the story, everything about it was just, it really went out there and it really went for it.
I have scotch in this.
And of course you have scotch in your coffee. Well, it's New Year's Eve. So I think that just looking back on the year, that's one's really is going to continue to stand out. And so for me, it deserves a number 3.
All right, my number 2 film was Tree of Life. Which
similar in a way,
which I found to be a very interesting film, original, thought-provoking, complex, sometimes a bit irritating because of the complexity. There was a certain amount of factor in it, which is always annoying, but I could kind of get over that and respect it as a very interesting, visually beautiful as well.
Yeah, like, as I say,
film.
Similar, maybe.
Yeah, I think a number of people picked it as number 1. I wouldn't quite pick it as number 1 for reasons that will quickly become apparent.
Okay.
But I did like it a lot. I thought it's a very serious film, deserves to be taken seriously, and also meets my test of being entertaining, which is always the threshold.
Yeah, good, interesting, entertaining, good combination. I actually haven't had a chance to see it yet, I'm ashamed to say, but it probably would have made I have a feeling that it would have certainly factored in for me as one that would have meant a lot to me this year. So thank you for your number 2. My number 2 is the final Harry Potter, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. Won't mean much to you, but most people are
Who's
into the Harry Potter.
Huh?
I don't need to explain. It's the final film. I mean, the whole series is
played by George Clooney.
Yeah, about middle-aged angst, not. And it just for a finale, it just gave everything that you wanted, fans of this series would want, to the nth degree. The effects, the emotions, it just all came to such a satisfying head in that final installment that it's just such a gem and a great way to go out with that series, and you just can't let that series go or let the final film go and be forgotten. So for the series and for the year, that has to stand for me at number 2, and it meant a lot to Max too. It probably would have been his pick for best of the year if he'd done his picks, but he's busy with his Christmas presents and he couldn't do
looking after his new sister.
And looking after his new sister. So for me, number 2, Deathly Hallows Part 2.
All right, and my number 1 is your number 3, Melancholia, which I found to be an extraordinarily interesting movie, totally original, which is always important to me. Visually extreme.
Can you be partially original?
Good question. You could be original in parts, but not partially original. How's that?
Give me some scotch.
Visually very beautiful. There's some set sort of pieces, so to speak, in that film that are extraordinarily beautiful, beautifully done, particularly the opening part, are just a gripping, original, beautiful, interesting film that stays with you. So that's my number one.
Yeah, well, I can't.
And there's a certain theme you might sort of notice in my three: Melancholia, Tree of Life, and The Descendants, about a fatal accident.
In a way, actually, kind of descends in terms of end of the world. Tree of Life is sort of in between, and then Descendants is just more an individual's end of world.
But all three of these films are, I think, original and interesting and thought-provoking, which for me is sort of the bottom line.
Very important, strong stories.
Strong stories, exactly right.
And yet emotional human elements that are very relatable.
That's the reason, by the way, I would put Melancholia, I think, ahead of Tree of Life. Melancholia is driven by a defined plot, which Tree of Life is not exactly.
It's a bit higgledy-piggledy.
Well,
yeah, I mean, Melancholia, you wanted the story arc. The story arc is that, dun dun dun, the world is going to end, and it ends.
Yes.
Sorry, I hope that's not a spoiler, but you can get much more of a definitive arc than that.
It was clear. It was clear.
It was pretty clear,
pretty clear.
Hope we didn't spoil Melancholia for anybody. Okay, so my number one, well, obviously didn't make your top three. You might disagree, but I just have to say, and that's why I clarified number one in terms of my favorite film of the year, not the definitive best film of the year. Depends how you qualify these things. My favorite film of the year, I can't get over it, is Drive. I loved Drive. Again, I saw it at the film festival.
It's because you're just keen on Ryan Gosling.
It's not just because I'm keen on Ryan Gosling. I think it is the coolest movie of the year. It's like an art film for the mainstream. It's got all these. It's got the hip factor to it and artistry, and yet it's just pure entertainment, fun. You know, the driving, the violence, Ryan Gosling. All these elements that to me are just so satisfying.
You just picked that because Ryan Gosling is a Canadian.
Well, there's that too. No, that has nothing to do with it. I just had so much fun with this film.
He's no George Clooney, I can tell you that.
He's better than George. He's gonna be surpassed George Clooney. I think Ryan Gosling is the way to go. But I think that the filmmaker as well, the director, Nicholas Winding Refn, he's got a hard name, is just going to bring so much more interesting stuff to the table, as is Ryan Gosling. But this just all came together in Drive for a pure entertainment factor and also thought-provoking and images that have stayed with me that I've been thinking about a lot since then, and just the movie that I can't wait to see again.
I liked it.
It's got rewatch value. I can't wait to see it again.
The trouble for me with Drive was that the end of the world didn't figure it out. So.
Yeah, it wasn't bleak enough for you.
No.
Yeah, but he had a cool
So there you have
jacket.
it, folks.
Those are our Gab Dad's best of the year. We wish you the best
happy
for
2012 and happy movie viewing in 2012.
Happy movie viewing.
We're back in business.
Can't wait to see. We never left business, but we're going to keep going.
Well, you were kind of temporarily diverted.
Sorry, I gave birth. I was temporarily unavailable. Also stay tuned for the U Reviewers 2012 second annual, where we're going to have the U Reviewer picks of the best of 2011.
We are going to do Separately, the worst films.
So be sure to watch that one too.
That's my favorite.
That's usually everybody's favorite.
That's my favorite.
So watch for that one.
Goodbye, folks.